Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to people who want to speak more as a way to build their income and grow their business.
Well, welcome everyone. I am so excited. This is the Speaker Launcher Teleclass series. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson. I'm the author of The Wealthy Speaker, and looking forward to today's call. The topic of today's conversation is tapping the education market, and our guest expert is Josh Shipp. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He is the author of The Teen's Guide to World Domination. What a great title, The Teen's Guide to World Domination. I smile every time I hear that. He's the founder of Youth Speaker University and the star of Lifetime's new documentary series, Teen Trouble, which documents his intervention work helping teens in crisis. Josh has worked exclusively in the untapped education market for 13 years and has built his business up to $2.2 million per year. Now, that is an impressive business model, and we're going to talk to him about what goes into that 2.2 and how he has actually exceeded even the regular speaker possibilities in a market that can be somewhat limiting. So welcome, Josh. Thank you so much for being on the line with us here today.
Hey, Jane. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Well, someone told me from your office that you had turned down CNN's Piers Morgan to be on with us today. Is that really true?
I did. Yes, you're my favorite Canadian. So to him, I said thanks, but no thanks. I already have something lined up.
Wow. Well, I am, sending my regrets, and I'm really sorry about that, Piers, but I beat you out on this one.
Yes. I'm
but
sure
you are going to be on Anderson.
Yeah, I'm doing Anderson Cooper Wednesday. That'll be live. I'm doing Nightline. I'll get around to doing Piers Morgan, doing the Jeff Probst show, The View. Quite a few things coming up this week promoting the documentary series Teen Trouble on Lifetime.
Okay, so your goal on those shows will be to talk about what's going on with this exciting new Lifetime show that you have. Now, how did that come about? I'm sure people are pretty curious about how you go about getting your own TV show.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a tricky thing, and we can get into the specifics of it. I mean, for me, I was, because I was working in the education market, and primarily, a quick overview of the education market, a common misconception is that you just have to speak to kids. And so I'll talk to speakers, and they'll be like, well, the education market sounds interesting, but I don't do I don't do balloon animals or something, or I don't juggle. And, the education market is not just speaking to kids. It's speaking to kids or anyone who works with kids in any capacity. So to very specifically spell it out, this could mean your audience could be kids, teens, college students, parents, educators, mental health professionals that serve youth, nonprofits that support youth or parents. And so it's a pretty big market, and I've been working in this market for quite some time, and have been privately working with teens at risk because I was, to say the least, a teen at risk. I was every parent's worst nightmare. I was out of control myself, and so I get that world, and I get how challenging that can be. So I've been doing this sort of work with teens for quite some time and had been approached about documenting it for a television series. And I always said no right away because I felt like it was very exploitive. They wanted to turn it into some sort of Jerry Springer show or something, and I was always against that. And then the executive producers of Oprah and Intervention contacted me, and so obviously I respected their work. And they said, look, we're going to let you do your thing. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're not going to tell the kids what to do. We're not going to fabricate anything. We just want to follow the story, and we want to document and give a stage to these brave kids and families that are trying to turn things around in the midst of absolute disaster. So I could not be more proud of the work we've done. I think it's going to be very inspiring whether you're a parent or a kid or someone who works with kids in any capacity. It's called Teen Trouble. It starts airing December 28th on Lifetime. Your life, your time, Lifetime.
So exciting. Well, congratulations on that. That is just absolutely, I'm sure, a dream come true and something that will reach a lot of people. So let's back up to the beginning of your start in the speaking career. How you said that you had your own kind of troubled background. Give us the Reader's Digest of that and how you started speaking.
Sure. So my biological mother had me when she was 17, and I was abandoned as a baby and immediately entered into the foster care system and various living situations. And so, I immediately sort of had my trust broken by adults when I entered into the world. And so, unfortunately, I didn't trust any adults. I had major trust issues. I was bouncing around in different foster homes, not giving great foster parents a chance, just pushing them away. I was abused in some of these homes. I was suicidal. I was very depressed. I was very oppositional, very defiant, very annoying, very, very rebellious as a kid. And as a teenager, this turned into me becoming a class clown. I realized early on that, if people wouldn't make fun of me if I could get them to laugh. And so I was a class clown, which understandably 9 out of 10 teachers were very annoyed by. But I had a teacher in a student leadership organization called DECA who approached me one day, and she said, Josh, I don't think you're a class clown. I think you're a communicator. When your friends are laughing, they're listening to you. And when someone's listening to you, you have an obligation to do something with their attention. And, we all sort of have those aha moments where something clicks for us, where I began to realize that perhaps me being a class clown and perhaps some of these things I had gone through were things that I could use to help other people. And so I joined DECA. I started getting involved in student leadership, and naturally sort of public speaking came with that as an obligation. But as far as when did I want to do this as a career, I very specifically remember one moment where I was speaking in this classroom, 20 kids or something. A very little thing at the time, but a big deal to me. And I was not just being funny, but also opening up about my life and some of the challenges I went through as a foster kid and what I had learned from some of those challenges, what I wish I would have done differently, those sorts of things. This young lady comes up to me afterwards and hands me a note and says, "Thanks, I don't need this anymore." It was a suicide note. Whoa. And I remember being completely dumbfounded by it. I had no idea what to say. I was just shocked. And then also, minutes later, the teacher came up to me and handed me a check saying, thanks for coming and speaking to our class. And I remember very specifically sitting in my car in the parking lot of the school with these 2 pieces of paper in my pocket that had a significant meaning to me. One was a gift for this young lady and a gift for the efficiency of my message and the benefit of my message, this young lady thinking that something I said, gave her some sort of hope in a challenging time for her. And then the other was, a check that I could use to not only live, but to help other people and do good things with. And it was really a big moment for me to realize that, sometimes the things in our life that have hurt us the most are actually the things that we can speak about to help other people. And this is an interesting thing about the education market is they're not looking to hire celebrities and best-selling authors and these sorts of things that sometimes perhaps happens in the corporate market. Really, they're looking for everyday normal folks who have some sort of interesting story to share, whether it be triumph over tragedy or, some sort of unique thing you've gone through. And what you've learned from that. They're really looking for people that are relatable, that have some sort of story to share and some sort of wisdom that's come from that story.
Right. So it may be resilience. It could be all kinds of different overcoming type stories that will impress them. So, okay, so let's address something early on about getting paid to speak, because Sure. There you are, a man with a heart who wants to do good in the world, and we've just told our audience that you're pulling in some pretty significant dollars per year. A lot of speakers, I think, misinterpret the idea of making good money with doing good in the world.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
This is certainly a soapbox topic for me. Number one, particularly in the education market, because you are, instilling values and advice in young people and those that work with young people. If you just want to do this for the money and you don't necessarily have a heart for the audience, you should hang up the call. I mean, there's no sense in you even entertaining the idea of entering into this market. Now, assuming that your motives are pure, you do actually, want to help kids or those who work with kids. The fascinating thing, and I didn't make, amazing money when I first started. I eventually strategically learned how to do so. But here's the beauty about the education market, and I think speaking in general, the only way to earn more money is to add more value. Meaning, let's say you have a book, and the book has great advice in it, and let's say you sell 10 copies of the book. Well, you're going to have impacted 10 people's lives, assuming they read it and apply it, and you're going to have made, a little bit of money. Now, on the other side of that, if you strategically learn how to go out and sell 10,000 books, well, now you're going to have impacted, assuming they read it and apply it, 10,000 people. And you're going to get paid, 1,000 times more because you've impacted more people. I actually believe our industry keeps us in check. And I actually think in the finances there is an integrity model built within our industry in that literally the only way for you to get paid more is to add more value. So that means to bring more value to the platform. That means to sell more of your product that could genuinely help other people. You cannot unattach the two. They're married. And so don't feel bad, for making a living. And also don't just do this only to make money. If you can marry those two objectives, being strategic as a business person, but also having the right intent as someone out there to serve other people, I really think that's where it's at. Okay,
nice. Well, we're going to talk some real specifics about the education market. Mm-hmm. Who do you call? What does that look like? But just from a big picture perspective, I think a lot of speakers could be very interested in your current business model. Now, the people who follow me know that I use this visual of an umbrella. At the top mm-hmm. of the umbrella is your lane, and in your case, something about education might be up there, or it could be that it's a little bit broader than that. And in the middle of the umbrella are the topics that you speak on, and flowing down off of the umbrella with arrows are the revenue streams. So can you give us kind of a snapshot of what your different revenue streams might be?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something I'm very, very strategic about because I'm always trying to maximize and optimize whatever momentum I have going. Because, the challenge can be as a speaker is that you can end up in a situation where you're a good speaker, perhaps getting paid good money, but essentially all you have is a high-paying manual labor job, meaning that if you don't show up and do a gig, you don't get paid. Right. And so sometimes we think we're building a business, but sometimes actually what we're doing is just building a very high-paying manual labor job. So it's true. And so, I think the number one thing, particularly if you're just getting started, is you need to become amazing at one thing first. You need to really, really become amazing at one thing first because if you can do that, nail your topic, nail the delivery, really nail your marketing funnel, your sales funnel, your delivery funnel, then you will have the credibility to go out and do other things. Then you will have the revenue and the margin to go out and do other things. Then you will have the clout within your marketplace to go out and do other things. So for me, there is, first of all, sort of the Josh Shipp business, meaning that I speak at high schools and colleges. I have a couple books, The Teen's Guide to World Domination. I have another book coming out next year. I have curriculum and supporting products for the education market, and I know we're going to talk about that. We have my television show, Teen Trouble on Lifetime, etc. So there's that piece of it that is essentially a very high-paying manual labor job. However, it's not number one an asset. I can't, if I was to die tomorrow, I have a wife, I have 2 young kids. If I was to die tomorrow, all of that's done. Other than the books, all of that's done. Game over. And so from that, then I've built in other things. One of the things for me was I was passionate about training other speakers that wanted to get into the education industry. So I started up Youth Speaker University about 5 years ago, because I wanted training specifically related to the education market when I started out, and I felt like, this could help other people. And frankly, I just thought it'd be fun because, you never really get to hang out with other speakers and nerd out about the art and the business of speaking. So I have Youth Speaker University, which is something that isn't a manual labor job. It's something that it taps into the credibility I had as a speaker myself, and because we see this all the time in the music industry, is that people produce other people's albums, people mentor other people in a business relationship, and so the idea is, well, first you need to go out and have a successful career yourself. That's why people want to work with, Dr. Dre or Jay-Z or really well-known artists that have been successful. So there's Youth Speaker University. And then also from that I started up a speaker management company. I would find students that would come through YSU. There would be a handful that I really, really dug, appreciated their message, thought it was unique, and I wanted to help manage their careers. I also had more opportunities than I could manage, and so this was a great way for me to be able to recommend someone that I really, really believed in, but also get paid for it at the same time and manage the details for them. So there's another spoke. And now I'm also involved in things that sort of replicate YSU, but where I am not the front man at all. For example, we have something in the music industry training niche. It's called CMI Academy. And so this is something like replicating YSU, but I'm not the front man. And so again, it's not just a high-paying manual labor job that relies only on me. So that's the overview. I mean, there's lots of detail within that, but again, the core message here is that you need to, number one, be amazing at something, and then secondly, you do need to think about how can I grow this beyond just me? How can I grow this beyond just a really awesome manual labor job?
Nice. And trading our time for money, that's something that I think a lot of speakers are scratching their head about to see, okay, how can I do that? So what I want other people to hear from this is not that you need to start your own speaker university, but that you need to figure out how to reach your market in different ways.
Exactly.
I think that having a handful of people doing it well is serving the speaker industry fine, but the more people who hop on that bus rather than serving their own markets, I really question that. So
yeah, I mean, you need to find something that's a niche for you, and frankly, I think your second business move should be something selfish, meaning something that just sounds like a lot of fun to you. And so you could be on the line, and maybe you're a former teacher, and so you feel like you could add a lot to the education market by training other teachers. I mean, teacher burnout is at an all-time high. Teachers are stressed out. They're underpaid, all of that. And so you could perhaps have a virtual online mentoring program for teachers where, as a former teacher yourself, you're making sure, A, they don't get burnt out. You're teaching them the newest tips and tricks and strategies in student information retention. These sorts of things. It's a really natural fit for you, but also where you don't have to always get on an airplane to collect a check and to get paid. And so you really need to think about, how can I take something I'm passionate about, I love nerding out about, that just frankly sounds like fun to me, and how can I figure out a way to, number one, add value, and number two, get paid without having to always hop on an airplane to do such.
Nice. Okay, so if anybody wants to tweet some of the interesting things that you're saying, like the only way to earn more money is to add more value, you can tweet at Josh Shipp or at Jane Atkinson. You can build those into your tweets and have share that with other people on your list. Okay, so you said be amazing at one thing first. So let's talk about the speech just briefly.
Mm-hmm.
It seems obvious to me that you have put a lot of craft into your speaking. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, when I started, I was horrible. I mean, that's just the truth. I wasn't that great. I was a bull in a china closet. I had no focused message. I had no focused delivery. It was horrible. I actually put my early demo video on YouTube and made fun of it. I think it's called The World's Worst Speaker Video. You can see it. But in the beginning, I wasn't that great, but I had the passion, and I was dedicated to getting better. When I first started out, I had sort of a freak opportunity to do a few speaking engagements with Bill Cosby. This was back during the Columbine school shootings. Bill Cosby's son, Ennis, was murdered in the driveway of his home. So there was a lot of conversations happening with what in the world is going on with young people and violence. So I got to do a few speaking engagements with him based around this topic. I was 19 at the time. And so he saw me speak, and afterwards he gave me some brilliant advice. He said to me, the speech is a conversation. And he said, you're not listening to your audience, Josh. You are not listening to your audience. And I was like, what do you mean? Are you like, why are you yelling at me, Grandpa? Like, what? And he said, number one, he said, you're terrified to pause. So you've got to understand, comedy is a conversation. You tell a joke, and then you need to let the audience talk back to you with their laughter. But you're running over them. You're not allowing them to talk back to you. So that's why you have some funny stuff, but no one's laughing because you're not allowing them to. And so he said, you have to pause for those moments where you're being entertaining or humorous. He said, you also have to pause in those moments where you're being thought-provoking or laying down an important piece of content. He said, with a joke, the audience responds with their laughter. With an important piece of content, the audience responds with their silence. You know, don't be afraid to let them sit there and consider what you've just said. Because to you, maybe you've said it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. But to the audience, it's the first time. And so that little tweak, I remember I immediately went out there and tried to do it. Of course, I was terrified. You know, standing there for 3 seconds not saying anything felt like forever. But it was incredible, the immediate impact that it had upon my speech. The final thing I'll say about this, that was one spot where my speech itself took a significant jump up. The other was when I asked myself this question: do I actually believe the crap I'm saying in my speech? You know, it was like I was 19 and I'm trying to be Zig Ziglar and, Tony Robbins and, something combined, right? So I'm basically quoting successory posters on stage. Mm-hmm. And I just asked myself, like, if I was, I'm young, so if I was 17, would I be sitting there folding my arms going, this guy's full of it? Or would this actually help me? And so when you can put yourself in your audience's shoes and begin to think about, is this just cheesy motivational poster bumper sticker stuff? Or is this something that can really attack head-on their fears, their concerns, their desires, their motivations? That makes a big difference. I mean, do you really believe what you say on stage? Would you say it with your friends at lunch? And sometimes what you would say to a friend at lunch to encourage them doesn't rhyme. It's not a haiku. It doesn't garner applause at the end. But it's genuine, and it's real, and it's authentic. And I think authenticity trumps cuteness. I think authenticity trumps cleverness.
I'm going to try to get a standing ovation from my friends at lunch.
Good, yes.
Okay, so this is why
and then tell them your book. And then tell them your book at the end.
Yeah, back of room. This is why I'm more story prone than teaching prone, because I think the teaching is where you can get into the successory posters and start saying kind of the jargon. So what would you say your story ratio to teaching ratio is in your presentations?
I mean,
any idea?
Yeah, for me, I'm there's sort of content-based speakers and there's story-based speakers. For me, I'm using my life story, the good, the bad, the funny, the sad, the tragic, all of that, as an illustration. And I try to set it up as in a similar way in which perhaps a one-man show would be, where what I am not doing is I'm not telling my 15-minute life story and then saying, well, here's how this relates to you. But rather, I'm telling it sort of chunk by chunk and then pausing to shove it back on the audience. Because if I just get up there and say, oh, I was a foster kid and woe is me, boo-hoo, it doesn't matter. It doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't help anyone. And so rather what I do is I tell a chunk of my story and then I pause and then I say, essentially, here's how this relates to you. Not everyone was abandoned at the hospital when they were born, but let's be honest, we've all felt abandoned at some point in our lives. We've all felt let down at some point in our lives. And so especially in the education market, especially if you're interested in talking to kids at any age, you need to think about what modality of communication trumps everything. Well, the answer is television. And how does television communicate to their audience? 7 minutes of content and then a commercial break. 7 minutes of content and then a commercial break. So you can't go on and on and on without pausing, shoving it back on your audience, and taking a bit of a somewhat entertainment commercial break and then proceeding forward. So anytime I'm sort of laying out a speech, I'm trying to program it like a television show. 7 minutes of content, then a commercial break.
Nice. Okay, I know people on the line are dying to talk about specifics about education. So
yep.
Let's talk about the maybe guidelines around fees. What could be expected in the education market and what your experience of that is.
Yep, sure. So if you have your stuff together, meaning, you have your speech down, you understand the value that it delivers, you have a solid demo video, you have a handful of testimonials that prove that, in theory, it's not just a good program, but people actually benefit from it. Speakers in the youth market and education market make anywhere from, $1,500 per speech to $12,000 per speech, depending on the venue, depending on the school. The average, no-brainer, the school doesn't even blink, or the nonprofit doesn't even blink, is $2,500 to $3,000. That is, you can do that every single day of the year, assuming you know who to contact and you very clearly understand the value that you bring. For me personally, I am getting paid $7,900 for a 1-hour speech. Now, these are at public schools.
That's pretty high. That's on the very, very high end. But you're commanding that because?
I am commanding that because, don't think I'm commanding that now because I have a TV show and, I'm telling Piers Morgan to piss off because I'm going to talk to Jane. That's not why. I was getting that fee prior to any of this. The reason that I have that fee, and I think the reason that anyone else in any niche has a higher fee, is because my buyer is pre-indoctrinated into that I am not a choice, but the choice. And this is all about your marketing materials. Think about it. As a speaker, people buy before they consume, right? They don't say, well, why don't you come and speak at our event, and then if you do a good job, I'll decide what I'm going to pay you. It's not how it works. People are taking a risk, which means you have to pre-indoctrinate. You have to, through your marketing, prove to them in advance, results in advance, that I am not only the right choice, but the choice, not a choice. If you're a commodity, if you're one of 100, then you're going to have more of a 1 in 100 fee. If you can strategically and intelligently position yourself as the choice on a particular topic to a particular audience, then you can command a higher fee. And, if any market is sort of looked down upon fee-wise, I would say it'd be the education market. You can't, make decent fees in that market. But the truth is you can if you know exactly how to market.
Right. And I've had clients before who have kind of risen up and wanted to go into corporate, and what they were doing was killing themselves kind of at what they perceived as the roof or the ceiling of the market, which is $5,000, and they were doing, 10 things in one city over 2 days, and it was really, really wearing them out. Can you talk to me about that in terms of how the education market can chew you up and spit you out if you let it happen?
Well, look, that's a personal boundary issue. That's not a business issue. That's a personal boundaries issue. You have some sort of, it's truly a psychological issue of you thinking that you have to say yes to everything, or that more money or more gigs on the calendar is going to make you feel happy or give you some sense of fulfillment. And the truth is, one of the best things you can do in your marketing is not say yes to everything, but to know that you are indeed not the right speaker for every audience, but for a handful of audiences, you will absolutely destroy it. And and absolutely hit a home run. And for that, of course, you're going to charge a premium price. Now, I find people are always surprised at what the education market is willing to pay, and there are sort of three reasons behind that. Number one, there's the need. The question back in the day used to be, is my kid at risk? Now the fact is, all kids live in an at-risk culture. Every kid is one or two decisions away from being at risk. Youth depression, drug abuse, suicide, bullying, parent-teacher burnout is at an all-time high. And so that's why there's a demand for individuals who can speak on these issues. These are things that teachers don't have time to cover in the classroom. So there's the need. And then there's also the demand. I was looking at this report by the Center for Education Reform. There are 132,000 K-12 schools in the U.S. alone. And that represents millions and millions of students and parents and teachers who need guidance on these issues. And that doesn't even count colleges or nonprofits or the hundreds of conferences each year. Now, this report also documents that those schools invest $178 billion per year on support services. Now, obviously, don't be stupid, that doesn't mean $178 billion on speakers. But part of that does include outside consultants, outside educators, speakers, consultants, these sorts of things. And then the third reason is the posture of schools and education. Think about it. Education by definition, everyone in education by definition is committed to learning. And they are desperately in need of messages considering the challenges that youth and those who face with youth work. The local school can really be not only a place of influence, but also a great place for you to get your message out, assuming that it hits, kids, parents, or educators. And the sort of cherry on top is, unlike the corporate market, this is nuts. You get a new audience every 4 years. Every 4 years, you could go back to the same school, same spiel, same thing, entirely new audience. That is an unprecedented opportunity that is unique in the education market.
Okay, so in terms of, you talked about some of the topic areas, and you're really all about kids who are on the verge of crisis of some sort. What do you think the three main topic areas that are the most in demand in education are?
Yeah, well, this isn't a theory. This is a fact. There's three of them. It's motivation, leadership, and prevention. Now, the trick here is that you need to figure out how your unique angle and story and expertise fits under the umbrella of these major topics. So for example, let's say you are a entrepreneur. Well, you notice entrepreneurship isn't one of those three major topics because that's too niche. I can't pull out 2,000 kids from class for an hour presentation that's going to really affect perhaps 10% of the audience. However, you can talk about your ups and downs and life lessons and stories as an entrepreneur, perhaps in motivation, in finding your thing, and finding what you're passionate about. And when you're passionate about something, you will naturally protect yourself from things that are bad for you. So how do you find out what your thing is? That's an example of how you could take something that you nerd out about and are interested in and an expert in and fit it into one of those categories. But it's motivation, meaning, how do students get the motivation to commit themselves to their schoolwork? How do teachers stay motivated when, budgets are being cut and, teachers or students are more hostile? Leadership. How do you be a leader amongst your peers? How do you be a leader as a parent within the home? Prevention. This includes drug prevention, bullying prevention, teacher burnout prevention, academic dropout prevention. And so those are really the three major areas that schools pay major fees for because they can justify pulling everyone out of class when it fits under one of these three umbrellas.
Okay, so Let's look at how a booking might go down. This kind of falls under who do we contact and what exactly do we need to send them to get booked. So can you just walk us through what that might look like?
Yeah, happy to do this. So let's start with this. First of all, there are three components to every single business on the planet, and they're this: lead generation, conversion, and fulfillment. As an example, you got a Subway, like a sandwich shop down the street from you. They need to attract customers somehow through newspaper flyers or online ads or who knows what. That is generating leads. And then they need to somehow convince you to come in and actually hand them money. That is conversion. And then they need to fix and give you the sandwich. That is fulfillment. Now, the same is true for us as speakers. For me, the way I like to think of it in the speaking industry is you need to find the gig, book the gig, and then rock the stage. And so I want to specifically focus in on the first two because most of us sort of know what we're doing once we get up on stage. But the truth is, if you have a great message and you don't know how to get hired, your great message is not heard and people aren't affected by it. So I want to narrow in on those first two. So finding the gig. In the education market, there are some uniquenesses that you need to understand. First of all, the buyer and the audience are two entirely different people. As an example, my buyer, now I speak primarily to high school students and college students. My buyer is stereotypically a 42-year-old woman. She is a student activity coordinator, an assistant principal, maybe a school counselor, maybe a PTA head, but typically a 42-year-old woman. My audience is made up of skeptical 15-year-olds that are sitting there thinking, what is this guy going to tell me? And I hope I don't fall asleep. So you cannot market to the audience. You must market to the buyer, because the buyer is the one that puts you up on the stage. Now, once you get up on the stage, you need to stop appealing to the buyer and start appealing to the audience. But this is crucial. So what I encourage everyone I work with to do is to create sort of an avatar of your buyer. Now, this means who are they? What sort of position do they hold within the school or the nonprofit or the education community? How old are they? Are they stereotypically male or female? Based on this information, what sort of things do they value? And then, especially if you can answer these two questions. Why did they hire you? And then why do they really hire you? Why do they hire you? For me, I get hired because event planners hire me because they believe, A, I'm going to present a solid message in an entertaining way that their students won't be bored by. And secondly, that I'm going to deliver solid advice and value to the audience. Things that they want to say to the kids, but the kids wouldn't listen to them because, they're the principal or the activity coordinator. But then why is that person really hiring me? Well, selfishly, secretly, it's because they want to look good. Meaning they want to get the pats on the back that they made a good choice. So if you understand not only the primary motive, but also the secret motive, you need to utilize and leverage this within your marketing and your on-stage delivery. Meaning, if you know that's really important to your buyer, it would be great towards the end of your speech when your audience loves you for you to say, you know what, I want to publicly say thank you to Jane, who went through all this work to invest in this program today so you guys could enjoy it. Jane, would you stand up and let's give Jane a big round of applause. You're secretly, playing into her desire to hire you. So you need to understand who this audience is, or who the buyer is, because then not only do you know how to directly find them, but you know how to indirectly find them. Now, how do you directly find them? There are 22 different ways that you can do lead generation. You could obviously mail postcards, or you could do direct mail campaigns to schools and these organizations. You could do online advertising to these organizations, cold emails, cold phone calls, all sorts of things. But also, if I know that my buyer is typically a 42-year-old female, well, guess what? I could find her on Pinterest, which is a social network, that is largely female-based. And so then I'm not competing in a crowded channel where a bunch of speakers are mailing their postcards. I'm competing in a channel where I know my buyer is, but I know where a bazillion speakers are not. And so you've got to really understand your buyer. This is a huge thing. And then the question is, where can you find them and how can you offer value? The number one mistake I see speakers that I work with doing is that they're trying to close the sale on the first date instead of trying to capture information on the first date. Meaning they'll spend money in advertising or postcards or direct mails or these sorts of things. And essentially the letter or the advertising says, "Hi, I know we just met, but will you marry me?" And it's just not realistic. If you met someone like that in real life, you would file a restraining order against them, So instead, it would be prudent and wise to spend that money saying, I understand the challenges you're going through. Here's some value that I offer. In exchange for your information, could I send you something that would help you? Because now you can, over the course of weeks or months, convince that person that you are, watch this, the choice, not a choice. The choice, not a choice. Instead of, well, if you don't buy me on day one, then peace out.
And I think a lot of people, what will happen is the minute you drop in that postcard, then they're going to start kind of hearing your name in other places as well. So they'll be on a little bit more high alert for your name. So I think hearing it from several different ways is helpful. Now, I'm going to hazard a guess.
Yeah, also the goal here is to, in my opinion, for example, your website as an example. Now, I'm talking about the education market. That's what I'm an expert in. But in the education market, the top three goals of your website, in this order, is to, number one, capture information, number two, book gigs, number three, sell merchandise, in that order. Meaning, the primary real estate should not be focused on buy now, because you're a high-ticket item. It should rather be, let me give you something valuable in exchange for your email, and let me slowly, over time, prove to you why I'm the right choice. Now, on the back end of that, you have an auto follow-up campaign where you intentionally pull people through information in the order in which you wish them to go through. So you begin to think about, over the course of a year, what are the 12 convincing pieces of information, 12 convincing pieces of evidence I can put in front of this person, my buyer, to prove to them that when it's time or appropriate or there's the opportunity, I am the choice. Now, examples of that could be, here's a newspaper article about a program I did at a school in Texas. By the way, I would love to bring this program to your school. Again, you're playing into, they want to look good, they want to add value, and you're the person that can do that. Another thing could perhaps be a video testimonial from someone that's not you, but rather another 42-year-old woman, another version of your buyer saying, we brought Josh in to speak to our students or teachers. It was awesome. He added great value. It was a totally worthwhile investment. So you are, over the course of time, pulling people through information in the order in which they need to see it. So the big question here is, what are the 12 pieces of evidence you could put in front of someone that once they saw it and consumed it, there would be no question whatsoever that you're the right choice? The problem is if you just have a website that says buy now or go away, or you just have advertising or postcards that just say buy now or go away, you're not able to pull people through that information in the right, convincing, strategic order. That's a really big thing, folks.
So when we talk about it, we talk about dangling a carrot in order to have people give us their names and email addresses. What do you offer?
Well, again, you need to, who is your buyer and what is their number one frustration? So, if you are, for example, going to position yourself, maybe you don't want to talk to kids, but you want to talk to educators. As the example we were saying earlier, you're a former educator, you get it, been there, done that, understand it. Well, then obviously your marketing is going to be towards educators and groups that train educators. And so that carrot is going to be, what is their number one frustration? You're going to find out. You're going to talk to educators. You're going to think about it yourself. You're going to do surveys and say, what is your number one frustration as a teacher? What is that number one thing that just drives you crazy and stresses you out? Well, it may be, how to help kids focus more. It may be how to not get burnt out. It may be how to not get bitter because things are so crazy within the school. Whatever their number one frustration is, that is the carrot that you want to dangle. And then you want to add glorious, amazing value, and then keep in touch, continue adding value, and in each of those add value emails you go just real gently, by the way, if your school would benefit from a live program with me, here's how to set that up. I'd love to make that happen.
Nice.
And so the beauty here, one more thing on this. The beauty here is now when you understand how much it costs you to get a genuine lead of a buyer, you're going to convert more people into buyers because your marketing doesn't say buy now or go away. Your marketing says, I'd like to give you something free. So more people are going to get in your funnel, and then ultimately more people are going to end up buying because around maybe piece 5 or 6, they're going to go, man, this is awesome. I really want more of this lady's stuff or this guy's stuff.
Nice. What specifically is the carrot that's on your website, Josh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If I go to joshshipp.com, what will I see there?
Great question. Because, who is my audience? 17-year-olds. Who is my buyer? 42-year-old women. So what my carrot should not be is, hey, teens, here's how to be awesome. Or, hey, teenagers, here's how to, tell if a girl likes you. Or here's how to get your parents off your back. Because, again, teenager's not my buyer. The adult is. She signs the check. So that carrot is how to get through to teens. That's what it's about. That's the number one frustration that I know of with parents and educators is, parents are like, my kid's a teenager, they're an alien now, I love them, but sometimes I want to strangle them because I don't know how to get through to them. Same thing for educators.
That's saying, too, how you kind of separate your market because the teens are potentially your market down the road for buying books and things like that. Do you have a way of pulling your audiences into your world as well for sales?
Watch this. Every speaker in every market needs to have what I call a platform URL. So, for example, joshshipp.com is my public-facing website. However, teenagers don't go there because it's not for them. So when I'm speaking to a teen or college audience, I have a platform URL. Now, what that is a URL that is easy for them to remember that ties into an inside joke within my speech or an inside story within my speech. So mine is andagoat.com, which means nothing to you because you haven't heard my speech. But if you've heard my speech, it's funny, it's memorable, there's no way you're going to forget it. So when these students go to andagoat.com, they are brought in to a list that is specifically for students, that gives students things they value, offers students things that they can buy at their price point, meaning not my $200 classroom curriculum, but my $10 book or my Year of Awesomeness program that's $9 a month, things that are relevant for them in both value and price point. So I also have one for when I'm doing media interviews because now I'm speaking to parents. And so that is heyjosh.com. And again, that is specifically designed for parents. So now when I'm crafting emails or marketing or value, I know exactly who I'm talking to. I don't have an email list of some mothers and some educators and some, 17-year-olds. I know exactly who I'm talking to, which means I know exactly how to add value or I know exactly how to make a sales pitch.
That's good. That's really good stuff.
Yeah, that will change your career, because here's the bottom line. We talked about the high-paying manual labor job. How do you move away from that? You've got to build a platform, meaning that I now have an email list of students that is 220,000 students, because I've been doing the platform URL for several years. Now, here's what this means. Any moment, I can choose to step out on a platform that I own that has an audience of 220,000 people, which is why I can get big book advances, which is why I can sell stuff, is because I have a built-in audience that, Piers Morgan doesn't have to invite me on in order for it to happen, or Joshua High School doesn't have to invite me in order for me to get a platform. But at any moment, I can choose to step out on that platform that I own instead of the school owning or CNN owning or Lifetime owning or someone else owning, but a platform that I own, so I can consistently add value and consistently get paid from a small percentage of that list for that value.
So you touched a little bit on the $9 a month program that you do. Let's talk more about kind of follow-up products and programs that generate that reoccurring revenue for you. Tell us about kind of whatever kind of clubs and things like that you have.
Yep. Yeah. So the education market is really ripe for ongoing programs, follow-up programs. I mean, it's a really, really ripe market for this, and they invest in it quite easily, again, assuming you show the value that it's going to bring in advance. So things you can do. You could have a niche topic video curriculum that is designed for classrooms. Now, here's where, if you're the entrepreneur, you can get more niche-y. Maybe you're someone who speaks on money management to adults. Well, you can't do an assembly on that or a big stage program on that to students, but it makes a great classroom program. You could do classroom program on money management, leadership development, life skills, public speaking. You can get more niche within your classroom programs. I have a classroom program on identity, meaning the idea is that who you are, more accurately, who you think you are as a teenager, affects every area of your life. Now, I sell this for $100 to $200, depending on how many schools are buying, and we sell conservatively 4 to 5 of these every single day of the year on an ongoing basis, because we have people in our pipeline through the platform URL, and they are strategically and intelligently presented that value and then an offer. And so that's an example. Another thing you could have is follow-up materials that you sell in advance with your speech as an added-on bonus. Now, this is a great thing that you can do in the education market, is you can justify a higher price point when you have something that, so it's not just the speech. So they go, oh my gosh, we're going to pay this guy $10,000. All he's going to do is come in and yell at us for an hour. That's ridiculous. No, the speech could simply be a kickoff to something that's truly a program. So this could be, a copy of your book for every single kid. This could be some sort of DVD follow-up program week after week that dives deeper into the topic you're going to kick off in that main stage presentation. Every speaker should have a first class and coach option in your fee, meaning you need to have an option that is a shock and awe price that's about $2,000 above your normal fee that includes follow-up programs and products with it. And then underneath that, and you need to list them in this order, first class and then coach, you need to have sort of your normal fee that's basically just the speech and travel. Now, 2 things happen there. Number one, when people see the first class fee, it makes your normal fee look a lot nicer. So my first class fee is $9,700. My normal fee is $7,900. And so $9,700 makes $7,900 look better. But in offering the $9,700 option, which comes with a book for every kid or a year of awesomeness for every kid, which is a digital product, so it costs me nothing, then they can justify, we're not just paying a guy a bunch of money to come in and talk for an hour and then be gone forever. Mm-hmm. For example, in a year of awesomeness, it's a 52-week online mentorship program for teens that teaches them life skills. And it's online, so it costs me basically nothing. And so they can go,
it's all set up.
Yeah, we're going to pay this guy $10,000. Not only is he going to be here to kick off an awesome experience with our kids, but then every kid, should they choose, is going to get to learn from him over the next year. And that's all locked and loaded for me, and I don't do anything. You could also have follow-up materials for educators, how not to get burnt out, teaching skills, all of these sorts of things. And individual schools will buy it, educators will buy it, parents will buy it. If you really know what you're doing, school districts will buy it, which then it's no longer they're buying 100 copies of your book, they're buying 1,000. And also conferences will buy it as a great, gift for the folks that are there. Now, I don't want to be one of these guys that says, oh, yeah, it's just easy. You go out there and do it, and it's real simple. Look, there is complexity in simplicity. So, is this possible? Is this doable? Yes. Is it super easy? No. I mean, don't be foolish. Anyone who tells you anything worthwhile in life is simple as trying to sell you something, or is full of it. It is doable, but you've got to be thoughtful and strategic about it. And wishful thinking is not a strategy. Wishing this stuff would happen is not a strategy. You got to roll up your sleeves, and build a true business, not just a really good paying manual labor job. And this is why most speakers have a challenge with this. Because to set up a year of awesomeness, for example, that took me a year. It cost me money. It was a pain in the butt. It was challenging. I was burnt out on it at times. And in the back of my mind, there's always that voice going, dude, why don't you just hop on an airplane and go make $8,000? You're putting out money and you're not seeing anything from this. As a speaker, you have to guard yourself from that shiny object syndrome and sometimes stay at home, roll up your sleeves, and build a real business, which will not pay you now, but has the opportunity to pay you over and over and over again in the future.
Love it. I love how much strategy you have behind everything, Josh. Now we just
I'm just getting started. You have no idea.
This time has really flown by, and I'm going to say what I'd like to do in the final minutes is ask you, how do people get in touch with you? Let's say someone had a question. Can they ask it to you on Twitter? And how do people get in touch with you? And what if they want to get involved with you in some way?
Yep, sure. So on Twitter, I'm at Josh Shipp. That's 2 P's. I check that from time to time. And then also, if you are someone who's interested in speaking in the education market, not corporate, not nonprofits, not, associations. That's not my specialty. But if you're someone interested in, speaking to kids or teens or parents or educators, I would encourage you to Google Youth Speaker University. You can go to youthspeakeru.com, and I have some great free resources for you there that sort of dive a bit deeper into some of the stuff we talked about today.
Great. And I want to make sure that people, there was one question that came up to me just on email, and it said, do schools have the budget to pay for speakers? And we've already really covered that, but what do you offer if someone doesn't have the budget? Do you have an alternative to you, or do you now put someone in from your speaker management company? Yep.
So, there's a few things you can. So, number one, yes, schools do have the budget. Does every single school? No. And if you don't prove your value in advance and you don't have fantastic marketing, are they going to have the budget? No. Really, in the education market, your goal should be your marketing materials should make you look 10x what you actually charge. So if you're going to charge, $2,000, I want your marketing materials to look as though you're going to charge $20,000, and then when they get your fee, they go, oh, thank God, oh, okay, we can afford that. So yes, they do have the budget because there are dozens and dozens and dozens of speakers making a full-time living in this market. Secondly, what if they don't have the budget? Well, you have a few creative options here. Number one, you can partner with another speaker who is perhaps at a lower fee and offer to, suggest them for things in exchange for them kicking back you a percentage. That's one option. Another option I've had, to be very honest, somewhat decent success with, not wild success with, is I have a live, I have a DVD version of my program. Now, I don't sell that publicly, but I have offered it to schools, for, I think, $500. I would say you can, show this DVD one time only to your students, and then, and so that has, I would say folks that don't have a budget, they've taken that offer maybe, I think last year we maybe did 15 of those. So to be very honest, not wildly successful, but, still 15 schools got a good message that they couldn't otherwise afford.
Good.
But really I found partnering with someone who's at that lower price point can be helpful.
So if anyone has a question for you, they can tweet you at Josh Shipp. That's with 2 P's. And I want to say thank you. I am just so grateful that you took the time, that you didn't fly off to New York instead of being here with us today. And I really, really appreciate what you've given us. You've given us a lot of strategy, a lot of real technical things that people need to be thinking of. The speaking business is a business, and I know that after listening to this hour, people will be taking that more seriously. They'll be thinking about it more strategically as a result of what you've given us.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Show. Please visit speakerlauncher.com for your free Wealthy Speaker audit, and visit speakerlauncher.com/podcast for show notes and many more resources to help you catapult your speaking business. See you soon, Wealthy Speakers.